Inside is a new cinematic puzzle platformer from Playdead, the developers of Limbo. And developers didn't simply wait for 6 years to release their first game with a new paint job. Despite the seeming similarities, Inside is a very different game. The good thing about the game that you'll likely notice first is the atmosphere it builds. The game is as dark as was Limbo, but the tone and the mood of the darkness is different. Visually, the game is much richer, and at times it seems like a true 3D follow-up to the style seen in the cult classic Another World, also known as Out of This World. But the audio direction remains beautifully minimalistic. Have a listen. But the biggest difference between Inside and Limbo is how the game itself is built. While Limbo was first and foremost a puzzle platformer, Inside is a little big thrill and adventure, which reminds specifically of the classic cinematic platformers, and yes, that's the name of the genre, like the aforementioned Another World. Game constantly changes the speed, the situations, the mechanics, and while some puzzles do repeat in one way or the other, game never stops surprising the player from the start until the shocking ending. And this is where I also want to praise the developers for truly telling a very symbolic story this time around, instead of the game feeling like a series of cool images as backgrounds to puzzles with an abrupt ending like Limbo felt. It's a simple story, but told in a very intricate and unforgettable way. You could easily make an independent movie out of the game without changing most of its structure, yet it remains great as a game in the first place. There's not a lot of ugly about the game, but then there's not a lot of game as well, which can be disappointing to some. It took me about 3 hours to beat the entire game, including all the secrets, although I did look up one solution to the secret online, and for some the asking price for the game might be too high for the hour count. Personally, I felt the length was perfect, but I feel like mentioning that. I feel like mentioning the fact that sometimes the animation do look weird as well. Something that you wouldn't notice unless most of them looked fantastic, but it can happen. I can't really find anything bad to say about the game. If I start nitpicking, I'd say that some of the swimming-based puzzles were not very well done, and there are some situations where the player is expected to react very quickly without a good tell from the game. Those are rare, checkpointed fair, and they are especially noticeable since most of the game helps the player subtly in a good way, but they do happen at times. Inside is an exciting, scary and thrilling game that always finds new way to surprise. And while only time will tell if it will become the first in the return of the truly great cinematic platformers, I would really hope it does.